Something strange is going on in Minnesota as a recent NFL.com article leaves everyone wondering why Kwesi Co remains stagnant. And Kevin O'Connell drops multiple huge updates concerning a major position group that's a little bit banged up right now. We're going to break down all of that in this episode of Vikings Digest. But first, if you're enjoying this Vikings content, you want to help us reach our goal of 1,600 subscribers before the start of preseason next week, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any of the updates as they drop. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is still waiting. So NFL.com put out an article today by Kevin Patrick, actually yesterday I should say, talking about the best team free agent fits ahead of the 2025 NFL season, talking about Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, but it comes to one of the biggest talked about free agents right now on the defensive side of the ball, and that is Asante Samuel Jr., who he has going to the Minnesota Vikings. Saying here in the description, saying that the comments from Asante Samuel Sr. regarding Miami persuaded me to look elsewhere for a landing spot for his son. The Vikings fit the bill. Minnesota has questions at corner outside of Pro Bowler Byron Murphy, Mekhi Blackman coming off of a torn ACL sustained last July. Jeff Okudah has never lived up to his first round draft billing and continues to bounce around the league. And Isaiah Rodgers has started 13 games in his career, missed all of 23 due to suspension, and the 25-year-old Samuel Jr. has his detractions, including questionable tackling, but could fit into a Brian Flores system. There are injury concerns with Samuel Jr. too. He missed 13 games last season, but the talent is there to take a swing. Now, if you guys have been watching for the past couple of weeks or ever since free agency started, you guys have known that I have been preaching for the Vikings to go out and sign Asante Samuel Jr. I was very shocked that he wasn't taken off the board very early. When you look at the NFL Top 100 free agents list that was put out when the free agency started, he was one of the names on that list, and he remained on that list. And as the list kind of just narrowed down with guys getting taken off that board, Kirk and I have been talking about how it was crazy that Mike Hilton and Asante Samuel Jr. were both available for free agents just to pick up for nothing, basically, for a team to go and get them and not have to lose anything aside from money. But Mike Hilton goes to the Dolphins, so now they're taken care of there. And with Asante Samuel Sr.'s comments regarding Miami, obviously that rules them out, especially with picking up Mike Hilton. That's probably why they went and picked up Mike Hilton. Or maybe this was a reason why that he tweeted out as to maybe thinking his son was slighted. But overall, Jeff Okudah, from what we've heard in training camp, he has lived up to those expectations. And pairing that with what Samuel Sr. was saying about Chris Carter, that could have been some reason why Minnesota hadn't signed him. In the last video that we talked about covering Asante Samuel Jr. and Mike Hilton, that was something that we talked about where his dad's comments might have been hurting his chances at being signed, not just in Minnesota, but just by anybody looking at that going, we don't want to have that outside attention if we're bringing a guy like this in here, because that is just a lot of noise to deal with. We've seen it happen with Tyrese Halliburton and his dad in the NBA Finals this past offseason. And then we also have with other sports, we see with Brittany Mahomes and Patrick Mahomes and all that drama, and some other sports where off the field issues and team and player relationships that can impact a team and the spotlight on that team and attract a lot of bad media attention that you don't necessarily want. And as well as Isaiah Rodgers, he is starting to look like someone who is really blossoming in a Brian Flores system. But overall, I do really like the idea of bringing Asante Samuel Jr. in. When you look at his stats, yeah, he's not the greatest of tacklers, but he still has a decent amount of tackles. He can still be a pass disruptor. He can get you an interception sometimes when he needs to. He did get two in the last 2 years ago, He didn't get any last year, but he was injured and only played 4 games. So he is able to get at least 2 interceptions every single year. And this is a Brian Flores team where we have seen a lot of guys have career years where we didn't expect them to even get even better, or just continue to see them grow and grow and grow, especially playing under Brian Flores. Saw it with Blake Cashman, took his game to another level. Andrew Van Ginkel got to a level that we didn't think was possible, reuniting with Brian Flores. Then also you have Jonathan Grenard, who is an absolute beast. So there was a lot of things to like for the Minnesota Vikings defensive players that took a big step up. This is one that could definitely benefit from it. Jeff Okudah is another guy. Isaiah Rodgers. Just seems like everybody that's brought in to this Minnesota team that had some question marks around them seems to be able to flourish under this Brian Flores defense. And the other thing that I like about bringing in Samuel is that AAV when you look at it. $11.5 million. The Vikings can afford it for this season. Into later seasons where it gets a little bit difficult. However, with the cap constantly going up, they might be able to afford it even more so as time goes on. So signing him now is saving you a lot more money in the future than if you were to wait if he gets a 1 or 2 year deal and you come back around on him in the next couple of seasons. You're going to be paying a lot more than you would right now for him. So the Vikings, they have $23.5 million in cap space right now. You go out and get Asante Samuel Jr., that's $11.5 million, so it takes you down considerably for in-season signings and trades. However, this is something that could really bolster down this secondary room where, yes, we've seen Theo Jackson really start to emerge in training camp. Mekhi Blackman's looked pretty decent. Jeff Okudah has looked really strong. Isaiah Rodgers. So this could all be just unwarranted panic from Minnesota Vikings fans and the media, or this could be indicative of saying, hey, we just need extra reinforcements. Even if it's a guy like that where we bump Jackson or Mekhi Blackman down a little bit, hey, those are still solid guys where you can have them as rotational guys rather than full-time starters every single game. But you rotate them in like you did Dallas Turner and get them into a more not as responsible role where they have a lot of responsibility on their hands, where they're having to worry about so much and get lost into what they're doing and just make mistakes. You don't want to have that. So you take a lot of that pressure off of them and you put them in a rotational spot where they're just coming in every 5 to 6 plays. That's a really good spot to put them in, and it can relieve a lot of stress off of some of the other big guys and not having to get overworked. But what do you guys think about this down in the comments below? Do you guys think the Vikings should go out and sign Asante Samuel Jr. despite all the noise outside and off the field with his dad? Or do you think the Vikings can hold out for someone better? Or do you trust that whatever Minnesota has right now, they are good with as far as the secondary and we don't need to improve any further? Let us know down in the comments below. But that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is K.O.C. dropping multiple updates. So Kevin O'Connell had a press conference earlier today where he talked about a few updates concerning players, talked about Darrisaw being back on the field in a limited aspect, as well as Will Fries, and some other injury updates along the way. And the major one everyone was talking about and asking about, of course, was Justin Jefferson, saying that he'll start doing some more things to begin the process on the grass. I don't have an update on the timeline other than the reports back to me have been very positive. Evaluations with something like this is more so the checkpoints before he's eventually doing more and more, and that will start this week. So nothing huge on Justin Jefferson, but it is a huge player that we get an update on, because this is something where if Justin Jefferson has even a hangnail, people are going to be wanting to know about it and are going to be concerned, because he is the best wide receiver in football and who is the franchise player for Minnesota, obviously. So this is something where you want to make sure that he is absolutely perfectly fine. You don't want to see anything go wrong. So with this hamstring injury, they just want to, or hamstring aggravation, I will say. It's not a full-on injury because we haven't seen him miss a considerable amount of time or say that it's a very serious inflammation or so. But this is a hamstring issue that he is going to have to deal with, and those things can be very pesky. They can persist throughout the entire season. Aaron Jones dealt with that all last season. So that's something where you want to jump on it early and not have to let it just keep on getting aggravated week to week in the regular season. Deal with it, neutralize it, have it go away before the regular season even starts. We know he's not going to be playing any preseason games, so he has all the time in the world to really just rehab it and get back to 110% for week 1 against Chicago. But it didn't stop there, because the other one that he was asked about, and this was the one to kick off the press conference, was Rondale Moore about his adjustment to Minnesota and as well as his injury recovery. He says, we've been monitoring just how he recovers, but he put himself in a position to not be on any pitch counts or restrictions early on. So that's been really good to see coming off of the injury that he had. So obviously this is really good news. Rondale Moore was a signing I was very excited about when Minnesota made it at the start of free agency. I thought that was a really sneaky one that nobody was really talking about. Kind of went under the radar, because Rondale Moore is a guy who, he's not as fast as Tyreek Hill. He's not going to be the skill of Tyreek Hill. But you get a little bit of a version of him with the speed that he presents, with the shiftiness that he has, how he can just cut across the field, cut back across. He's a very speedy slot guy. Going with Jalen Nailor, that is awesome. Going with Jordan Addison, great. Complimenting Justin Jefferson that way and alleviating that pressure off of him and TJ Hawkinson, and giving linebackers something to worry about, where it's not just Hawkinson and Oliver coming across or Hawkinson and Nailor. You have a speedy Rondale Moore coming across and then a big TJ Hawkinson. You put those on crossing routes, linebacker's not going to know which one to pick to go under or over the top. It'll be a very good mismatch for them to face. And within that, Rondale Moore, speed is something you can't teach. You're born with it or you're not. In Minnesota, if you have a guy who has a ton of speed, everything else can just fall into place. You can teach everything else. You can teach footwork. You can teach route running. You can teach catching. You can teach all that. But speed is the one thing you cannot teach. And Rondale Moore has it in spades, so now they can utilize that. K.O.C talked about how he was just throwing his hat in the ring on kick returns. Can't wait to see that, because I think that we could see not a return to what Cordell Patterson was, but at least a flash of it. I think Minnesota, if they have Rondale Moore on kick returns, I can see us getting 1 to 2 kick returns for touchdowns, whether it's on a punt or a kickoff. I think it'll happen at some point, especially with the new kickoff rule. I think you could put a speedy guy like Rondale Moore on there where it's a short field and a lot of blocks that can just develop right away. I think he's going to make those guys pay, and I think Minnesota could be looking at some special team points this year that we weren't getting all of last year. But what do you guys think about this down in the comments? What do you think about the Justin Jefferson update? What do you think about Rondale Moore? What did you think about K.O.C's press conference if you caught it? What was the biggest thing you took away from it? Was it outside of what we covered in this video? Was it to do on the defense side of the ball? He talked about Jonathan Grenard and how he's been really just an anchor of this defense. Talked about how tough this defense is going up against J.J. McCarthy and just winning one-on-one battles rather than scheme. So what was your biggest takeaway from Kevin O'Connell's press conference, and what is the biggest thing that you're looking forward to most heading into this preseason? Which player are you looking at the most to see what storylines develop? Let us know down in the comments below, but that's going to do it for this episode of Vikings Digest. I've been your host, Griffen. Take care.